November 2, 2012. At 4:36 a.m., Allison Grant, 39, a night shift emergency dispatcher in Wilmot, Ohio, was found dead at her desk, slumped forward, headset still on. She had suffered blunt force trauma to the side of her head. No one saw who came or went. The doors were locked. There were no cameras inside the dispatch office. Officer Pete Morales discovered her body when he returned from his coffee run. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as he stepped into the room and felt the chill first. Someone had turned the air conditioning to its coldest setting. Allison's coffee cup sat untouched, a thin film forming on its surface. Her notebook was open, but the pen had rolled onto the floor, leaving a trail of ink across the linoleum. "Dispatch, this is Morales," he radioed, his voice catching. "We have an officer down. Get Detective Reeves here now." Detective Marcus Reeves arrived 20 minutes later, his tie askew, eyes heavy with interrupted sleep. The small dispatch center was now crowded with uniforms, and flashing lights from vehicles outside painted the walls in rhythmic pulses of red and blue. "Talk to me," Reeves said, snapping on latex gloves. He approached Allison's body carefully, noting how her fingers still rested on the keyboard. The medical examiner, Dr. Vivian Chen, looked up from her preliminary examination. "Blunt force trauma to the right temporal region. Likely a single blow. Death would have been quick, but not instant. Based on liver temp, I'd place TOD between 2:30 and 3:30 a.m. Reeves frowned. "Security?" "That's the thing," Morales said, pointing to the electronic entry log. "Doors have been locked since midnight. Only badge-ins were me at 2:02 a.m. when I went for coffee, and Allison when her shift started at 11 p.m. Cameras? None inside. Budget cuts 3 years ago. Exterior ones show nothing unusual. At first, it was assumed to be a random act of violence, perhaps a disgruntled caller who had somehow gained access. But as detectives looked closer, they discovered something strange. One emergency call from that night had been deleted from the system. Only a partial backup remained. Reeves sat at the technician's desk, scrolling through the night's call log. "This doesn't add up." Allison was meticulous. "Everyone says so." The tech specialist, Raj Patel, nodded. "That's why the missing call flagged in the system. Anything deleted requires supervisor credentials and creates an automatic backup." The call came in at 2:17 a.m. A woman whispered that someone was inside her house. The voice was faint. Scared. The address, 308, Keeley Road, was barely audible, but it matched a known property on the edge of town. Police were dispatched. Reeves and his partner, Detective Samantha Wilkes, listened to the recovered audio. "Help, please," the voice whispered, each word measured and deliberate. "Someone's in my house. I can hear them, breathing outside my bedroom door." Allison's voice came through clearly. "Ma'am, can you confirm your address?" 308, Keeley Road. The woman's voice was so soft that Reeves had to lean closer to the speaker. "Please hurry. He's tried the doorknob twice. Units are en route. Stay on the line with me." A long pause followed. Then the sound of wood creaking. The call cut off. When they arrived at 308 Keeley, the house was dark. The front door was open. But no one was inside. No sign of a break-in. No signs of struggle. The call was marked as resolved, no contact. "I remember this call," Officer Hernandez said, joining Reeves and Wilkes at the house the next morning. Place was empty. No footprints in the dust, no sign anyone had been here in months. Reeves walked the perimeter of the weathered Victorian home. The paint peeled in long strips, and thick overgrowth had nearly consumed the wraparound porch. A real estate sign lay fallen in the yard, its post rotted. But here's the twist, that house had been vacant for 3 years. "Who owns it now?" Reeves asked, peering through grimy windows into empty rooms. County does, Wilkes replied, flipping through property records on her tablet. Foreclosed in 2009. Been sitting empty since the last owners moved out in early 2010. So our caller either broke in to make the call, or was never here at all, Wilkes finished. Allison had flagged the call in the system with a note, voice familiar. Need to check incident log 2009. That note was also deleted, recovered only through system logs. Back at the station, Reeves interviewed Allison's supervisor, Don Keller, a balding man with perpetually sweaty palms who'd run the dispatch center for 15 years. Allison was good at her job, Keller admitted, not meeting Reeves' eyes. But she had fixations. What kind of fixations? Patterns. She was always looking for patterns. Said some callers' voices triggered something in her memory. Keller shuffled papers on his desk. She spent her shifts combing through old calls instead of just answering new ones. Started keeping her own records, cross-referencing incidents. And that bothered you? Reeves asked. Keller's eyes narrowed. It wasn't efficient. We're understaffed as it is. But her co-workers described her differently, detail-oriented, precise, always on edge when certain voices came over the line. She'd get this look, said Tammy Roberts, the day shift dispatcher who'd worked with Allison for 6 years. Like she'd heard a ghost. Started happening more in the last few months. After certain calls. Tammy nodded. Especially ones from that neighborhood, Keeley Road and the streets around it. Said the voices sounded the same, even when they gave different names. Reeves and Wilkes obtained a warrant for Allison's home. Unlike her tidy workspace, her living conditions suggested someone under stress, takeout containers piled up, mail unopened, clothes draped over furniture. But her home office was meticulously organized. One file folder was labeled Keeley Series. Inside were transcriptions of 9 calls made from the same block over a 10-year span, all describing shadow figures, locked doors opening, or heavy footsteps with no visible intruder. Most of the callers were now deceased or relocated. No arrests were ever made. This is remarkable documentation, Wilkes said, spreading the papers across Allison's dining table. Look at her notes in the margins, times, dates, voice pattern analysis. Reeves pulled out a map where Allison had marked each caller's location with colored pins. All within a 3-block radius of 308 Keeley. And look at this, Wilkes held up a yellowed newspaper clipping. 1974, double homicide at 308 Keeley Road. Couple found bludgeoned to death. No suspects ever charged. Reeves frowned. That house has a history. More than that. Allison circled this paragraph. Wilkes read aloud. Investigators noted that the murderer appeared to have intimate knowledge of the home's layout, possibly having observed the victims for some time before the attack. One call from 2009 described the intruder as calm, methodical, like he knew the house. The caller's name, Maria Benton, a retired teacher. She died in 2011, officially, of a stroke. But her autopsy included one unexplained detail, a cracked rib with no corresponding injury. Reeves stared at the autopsy report Allison had somehow obtained. How did a dispatcher get access to this? Her brother works in the county medical examiner's office, Wilkes said, checking her notes. Jim Grant. Been there 20 years. They visited Jim Grant that afternoon. A tall, rangy man with the same copper hair as his sister, he invited them in with obvious reluctance. Allison called me 2 weeks ago, he said, voice hollow. Asking about Maria Benton's autopsy. I shouldn't have helped her. But you did, Reeves prompted. Jim nodded. The rib fracture bothered me too. Perfect transverse break, like someone pressed down with tremendous force. No bruising on the skin, though. Nothing to explain it. And other victims? Jim hesitated. Allison had a list. 8 names. I checked them all. 4 had unexplained fractures. 2 had internal bruising with no external trauma. The kind of injuries you'd expect if someone what, Mr. Grant? If someone knelt on their chest until something broke. That night, Reeves couldn't sleep. He stared at his ceiling, running the facts through his mind repeatedly. At 2:17 a.m., the exact time of the call from Keeley Road, his phone rang. The screen showed unknown caller. "Hello?" he answered, fully alert now. No response, just soft breathing. "Who is this?" he demanded. The line went dead. The next morning, Wilkes had bags under her eyes too. "Nightmare," she explained. "About someone standing over my bed." They drove to Don Keller's office, intending to press him further about the deleted call. His secretary informed them he had taken a sudden leave of absence. Don Keller, the supervisor, resigned officially 3 days later. He now runs a private security firm 2 counties away. Police reclassified Allison's death as a targeted killing, but no charges were filed. Reeves wouldn't let it go. He set up a meeting with Keller at his new office, a sparse, windowless room with 2 new furniture. "Why delete the call, Don?" Reeves asked without preamble. Keller's face remained impassive. "I don't know what you're talking about. System logs show your credentials were used. Anyone could have used my computer. I step away all the time." At 2:30 a.m. When you weren't even scheduled to be there. Reeves leaned forward. What did Allison figure out? Keller's composure cracked. She was obsessed. Seeing connections that weren't there. Or connections you didn't want found, Wilkes interjected. "We pulled your personnel records. Before Wilmot, you worked dispatch in Clarion County. 1994 to 2000. So. 3 of the deaths Allison was investigating happened there during those years. All had calls reporting intruders before they died." Keller's face paled. "You don't understand. It's not what you think." "Then explain it," Reeves said. "Some calls shouldn't be answered." Keller's voice had dropped to a whisper. "Sometimes the line between dispatcher and something else gets crossed." "What does that mean?" But Keller would say no more, lawyering up immediately. His alibi for the night of Allison's death checked out. He was at an all-night diner 30 miles away, confirmed by both the waitress and security footage. The investigation stalled. Without concrete evidence, the prosecutor wouldn't move forward. Reeves kept digging on his own time, reviewing hundreds of call logs from both Wilmot and Clarion County. Then the break came from an unexpected source. Tammy Roberts, Allison's co-worker, called Reeves in tears. "I found something," she said. "Allison gave me a sealed envelope last month. Said if anything happened to her, I should open it. Inside was a USB drive containing audio files, dozens of them, dating back 15 years. All calls about intruders. All from addresses near Keeley Road. All with the same whispering voice, despite different caller names. And the most damning evidence, a recording of Don Keller speaking with someone after hours. It's getting harder to cover, he said to the unidentified person. This dispatcher, Grant, she's connecting cases across counties. If she figures out about the caller. The other voice responded, too low to make out clearly. No, I can handle it, Keller insisted. No need for that. Not again. Reeves brought the evidence to his captain, who reluctantly agreed to reopen the case. They obtained warrants for Keller's home and office. In a hidden safe behind his bookshelf, they found newspaper clippings about unsolved deaths in 3 counties. And a vintage phone receiver, its cord severed, copper wires exposed at the end. Lab tests confirmed it as the murder weapon. Allison Grant's blood and hair were embedded in the metal parts. Keller's fingerprints were absent, wiped clean, but microscopic skin cells trapped in a screw fitting were a DNA match. When they went to arrest him, Keller was gone. His house emptied, his office abandoned. The security company he claimed to run had never been properly registered. The dispatcher desk where Allison died has since been replaced. But employees report that line 3, her old line, sometimes flashes green without a call coming in. And once a month, just after 2:17 a.m., it rings once and then stops. Reeves still keeps the case file in his desk drawer. Sometimes, on late nights, he'll pull it out, studying the photographs, the transcripts, the map with its colored pins marking deaths across 3 decades. His phone rarely rings after midnight. But when it does, he answers with trepidation, half expecting to hear that whispered voice, "Someone's in my house." The investigation officially remains open. Keller is still missing, presumed to have fled the country. But Reeves can't shake the feeling that he's still nearby, listening in on calls from empty houses where the front doors stand mysteriously open. And on the anniversary of Allison's death, Reeves drove past 308 Keeley Road. The house should have been dark, abandoned as always. Instead, a single light burned in an upstairs window. When he approached the front door, his radio crackled to life. "Help, please," came a familiar whisper. "Someone's outside my door." Reeves drew his weapon, pushed open the unlocked door, and stepped into the darkness beyond. The floorboards creaked beneath his feet as the door swung shut behind him. His radio crackled once more. "Detective?" The dispatcher's voice sounded concerned. "Detective Reeves, do you copy?" But there was no answer. 3 days later, his empty vehicle was found parked outside the house. The interior light was on, driver's door ajar. His service weapon lay on the passenger seat, unfired. Inside 308 Keeley Road, the dust remained undisturbed. No footprints, no signs of struggle. As if no one had entered at all. Line 3 at the dispatch center rang that night at 2:17 a.m. The new dispatcher, fresh out of training, answered promptly. 911, what's your emergency? A man's voice responded, barely audible. "Someone's in my house." The address? 308 Keeley Road. When officers arrived, the house was dark. The front door was open. But no one was inside. The call was marked as resolved, no contact. And somewhere in the record system, a new note was quietly deleted. Voice familiar. Sounds like Detective Reeves.